Welcome to another episode of That Anita Live. I'm Anita, your host, and this is the talk show dedicated to providing emotional healing through sharing to help you create a happier life. My guest today has been through the fire of a life-threatening relationship, name-calling, nitpicking, jealous rages, even being threatened at knife point. Kim McLemore is here to not only share her story, but to share how she managed to, one, remove her abuser from her home and have him convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Go, Kim. Girl.
All right.
Let's start at the top, though, because it doesn't start out abusive.
Absolutely not.
They're always Mr. Wonderful. So tell me, where did you meet Mr. Wonderful?
We actually met right in D.C. because at the time I worked in D.C. and so
Okay.
down at the metro station, just sharing a train, just happened to be, interested in the conversation. And then we decided to go out a few times and then it just kind of went from there. And,
So he walked up on you on that subway platform and said, "You fine, girl."
well, no, not in that. No, it was just one of those situations where just being polite. He was
Okay.
being a gentleman, at
Okay.
least I thought. Yeah.
Okay, and then the train platform led to a couple of dates.
Correct.
How did the dates go?
Actually went really well. I mean, we really synced well with each other.
Okay.
And I mean, it got to the point where even after a few dates, we were talking about possibly having a future. And then, we just wanted to see how things worked.
Okay.
And probably about after 6 months to a year, we thought about, maybe it's time that we live with each other, because I felt in my mind that I need to see you more beyond just the dates.
So during this 6 months to a year period, who else on his side did you meet?
Actually, didn't meet anybody because locally his family didn't live here. All his family was in Pennsylvania. So it was just the opportunity for us to kind of continue to get to know each other. I did talk to his sister a few times, and she seemed to be great.
Co-workers.
I had never actually met any of his coworkers because we just could never hit that dynamic.
Okay.
But for me, it was one of those situations of just trying to really see him for who he is. But when you're just dating, you don't get to see everything about the person.
Say that again.
When you're dating, you do not get to see everything. And then when we decided to try to, live with each other and see how this was going to work, because I'd been married before and he had been married, his wife had died. But for me, I needed to go beyond just, oh, we're going to date and then think you're going to marry me. No, I need to see every little thing about you because none of us are perfect.
Right.
And I wasn't looking for perfection, but I definitely wanted to understand what was I going to dive into if I decided to go down that path.
You gonna leave that wet cup on my dining room table?
Right.
Do you pick up after yourself? Do you do your own laundry?
Exactly.
Okay,
And even those
okay.
little things probably was more significant to me was how do you act when we're having a good day or a bad day? What happens when things don't go your way?
Okay.
Those are the things that I needed to see, because once you've been married before, you understand the little stuff. But when you been through heartbreak, you start to look for things that you would never think about looking for in a previous relationship.
Okay.
So that's what those things that I was looking for. And if I felt uneasy or didn't like something, I knew that, hey, we either need to talk about it or we need to move on or got to let it go, something. But I don't live on pins and needles.
So he moved into your place.
Yes, that's correct.
And how did the first couple of weeks of living together go?
Perfect. It was like, oh, the perfect gentleman. I mean, I
Okay.
couldn't ask for a better mate, quote unquote, Things always seem to go great. And then things probably changed after about a year and a half.
What was the first thing that you noticed that was a red flag?
The first red flag was just, how we're having a conversation now, and then all of a sudden that conversation would go from good to hell, literally in a matter of seconds, and not understanding why. And like, how are you, what's going on here? I don't understand why you're upset. Couldn't get him to really talk. And then, of course, when he did decide to talk, it was always somebody else's fault. And so I kept it in the back of my pocket and like, okay, well, something still isn't right here. So let me just kind of keep my eyes open.
Okay, now, who on your side did he meet?
He actually met all of my family, probably about 6 months, 8 months after I needed to go home, and I actually wanted to invite him so I could get my family's opinion. And as time went on, I mean, they liked him, but they didn't like him. It was one of those situations, well, you like him, so we're going to go ahead and support you. But they really didn't particularly care for him. They thought there was something about him they didn't really like.
After that first visit, who was the person in your family that said,
My mother.
girl, that mama
It was my mother.
She
was like, I don't know about this one, but we're here. We're gonna support you.
Right,
You know,
right.
and but there was just something that
Okay.
she said, something about him I just didn't care for. And then I had a cousin who had also met, because it was a big family holiday. I think it was. We were all there, and he was like, yeah, there's something about this guy that just, I don't like him.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so we moved in together. We're doing the commute, traveling around as a couple. And do things begin to fall apart immediately, or does it kind of just do a slow descent?
It just started to slowly descend. And the reason why it was descending is because he had lost a job. I didn't know that until probably when I started figuring it out, probably maybe about 90 days to 4 months or so. It's like something was just changing. I'm like, why are you all upset all the time? Why is it that you suddenly don't have money? Because you can only play the game for so long.
Right.
And, but every day he would get up and act as if he was going to work every single day. Because even though we would take the metro, we would still go in two different directions.
Right. Eventually, right.
Eventually. And so I'm like, okay, something isn't right. And then the frustration with his family, it was like everything was just, you could just see it going downhill. And then finally, of course, he had to come out and tell me, because I had to say, look, you need to tell me what's going on here, because now all of a sudden you can't take care of your responsibilities.
Right.
And then we both have responsibilities if we're going to be living here in the same household. So tell me what's going on. And then that's when I got I lost my job.
And by responsibilities, because I need the sisters out there to know, he didn't just move in with you without any expectations of contributing
Exactly.
financially.
Exactly. Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you're gonna come live here. You have to bring it. You have to bring it to the table, and we both brought things to the table. He didn't have any children, of course, and my son is grown, so it was just the two of us. But we still have responsibilities, and at the time, my son was in college, and so was I. And still working a full-time job. So it was just one of those situations where either you're going to do what you say you're going to do, or you can't be here. And then as he kept losing jobs, he would get one, lose again. And I'm like, okay, what is the real problem here? It can't be everybody else's fault. And his biggest problem is never wanting to take responsibility for anything.
Okay.
And so then finally we got to the point where I just said, enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to take care of a grown man. It's time for you to go on your own, than the hanging out and doing things you wouldn't normally see him do. I mean, he just turned into a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Wow.
Literally within a matter of a year and a half or so. Once we made the decision that we wanted to, so-called let it go and move on, and he really just couldn't let it go. So as things progressed, he became the monster, is what I call him. And you'll find that there's a chapter in my book that I've written that it talks specifically about this individual. I refuse to say this individual's name, if you noticed. And I do that because to me, he was not a human being. He was a total monster. He turned into be the worst individual I've ever met in my entire life. The man put me through hell. In a very short period of time, I went from, possibility that he tried to kidnap me at knife point.
Okay, hold on. Because I need some of that unpacked.
Yes.
Tell me, okay, we talked about the little stuff as far as nitpicking, name calling. What was the first incident that really gave you a shock or a jolt?
The first incident really was, we were driving, I think we were going to church or leaving from church. And he got pulled over for speeding. And it was just the way he reacted to, not so much the officer, but to me. He got a ticket and it wasn't even my fault. I'm like, well, why are you not carrying your driver's license?
Right.
I mean, I would never think to ask you, you got your driver's license?
Right.
So just the stupidity things that would come out. And then every time, whether he was upset at me or something, and it was never really about me, it was always him or somebody else, I would be the bad person. So as time goes on, you're seeing these things. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to work for me. I don't live like that. And I don't want to be walking around my own household that I own and take care of on pins and needles.
Right.
Wasn't going to happen. So like I said, when we decided to make but wait, let me backtrack a little bit. We actually even went through counseling because we went to church together, and he's like, oh, I want to do some counseling. I want to, work on me.
you?
And that lasted all of 5 minutes.
Now, this counseling was, we need to get along counseling, or was this?
We were doing counseling because he
premarital
wanted
counseling?
he wanted to marry me. And I was like, okay, we could, but this was before things got ugly. So I had accepted the offer, of course. And then I said, but for me, I would like to go through the marriage counseling and all the things, because these are things that I feel that will help and benefit to understand who we are as individuals. Because like I said, you're only seeing the shell, and everybody has a representative.
Yes.
That's how we all meet each other, because we want everybody to see the best of us. But I was seeing things that were not the best of him anymore.
So you get into counseling with the good pastor.
Yes.
And the good pastor has the individual counseling session with you and says,
he had it actually with us together before we didn't even make it to the individuals. Okay. He said, I want to talk to you after we get done. I don't think we lasted maybe 15, 20 minutes in the counseling. And he says, you need to leave him and you need to do it now.
Good pastor.
I mean, it was instant. He could just see, because this was a gentleman that supposedly, he introduced me to this church, had been going there for years. But see, they didn't see him outside of church. And that's, I told him, there's something going on, and I could not figure it out. But I can't live with a person who wants to argue with me every night. I don't care whether you're having a good day or a bad day, it would always be my fault.
Well, give me an example of the name calling.
Well, there's some things I can't say actually on TV. It was that bad.
He would call you.
There would be some things that would be said that even God's ears, as I always say, would just have to close.
Okay, so what are some of the things that he would nitpick on you about?
Well, okay, let me just give you some of the basic as far as, oh, well, nobody else is ever going to want you anyway, and you're not good enough for anybody. Look at you, you're just pathetic. Constantly finding whatever negative thing he could find, he would find it. Even if there was nothing wrong, it was always, like I said, my fault.
Just 15 minutes in the pastor's office, and he
actually came to our home.
No.
And did it. Yeah. And it was, he was like, you got to get out of this.
So was that it for you? Was that the point at which you made?
Absolutely. I already knew I was coming to that point, because I could not continue living under that constant worry about, well, when is the next time he's going to get angry? And I was getting frustrated. And you know what happens when two people get frustrated? You start to go down a path that you don't want to go. And it could be devastating. And I knew at that point that if I continued being in that relationship, we probably both would have been behind bars.
Tell me about the day he tried to kidnap you.
I was actually going into, I'm a Zumba instructor. And so I was actually going to a class with the instructor who had actually trained me. And I was on the elevator with probably 3 or 4 other people, because of the building we were in at the time, it was only a couple floors, but I was too lazy to walk up the steps. So if I'd have actually walked, I would have actually seen him first.
Okay.
But decided that, no, I'm going to get on the elevator, save my little energy for the class, right? So got up there, and as soon as the elevator opened, there he is standing, a knife probably this long and this thick. Everybody, of course, is screaming, yelling. I'm trying to get everybody off of the elevator safely. And I'm trying to stay on the elevator. He's trying to pull me off the elevator and tell me, no, you're coming with me. I said, no, I'm not, because today I'm not going to die. This is not the day. And so, of course, we fought. I got away. And then, of course, as a coward that he is, he ran out the building. And, of course, police are all over the place. So it was just ridiculously crazy. Yeah. And he ran. He was on the run for a while, was in Tennessee, got caught in Tennessee and had to be brought back.
We'll be right back to unpack the rest of Kim's story and how she now uses that story to help others.
What if I told you that you could stop the negative tape from playing inside your head? What if, with 7 simple steps, you could leave the pain of the past behind and live every day as your true, authentic self? It is possible, and you can do it. The ebook, 7 Simple Steps to Beat Emotional Baggage, How to Become Whole, Healed, Healthy, and Happy, shares how to resolve emotional baggage and feel free to live true to your own personality, spirit, and character. Transform negative thinking into positive thinking and become equipped to boldly face your past and resolve emotional pain. Get your free copy at thatanitalive.com/ebook.
And we're back. We're back with Miss Kim McLemore and her extraordinary story of surviving a life-threatening domestic violence relationship. How did you get him out of your home?
Through police, of course. Because the first time I was actually hit, that was probably the most devastating point, and that was something I did not want to get to. And when he hit me, my life really changed forever at that point. And that's when all the other incidences started happening, because I had went through, like most women won't do, but I decided to utilize the system the way it should be utilized. You know, I actually had him, of course, kicked out of home, but he was slick, and he had me kicked out of my own home for like 48 hours. And then I had to actually go to court to get back into my own house.
Rewind.
Yes.
Push pin.
Yes. It was
How did that
crazy.
happen?
Because when you're a con artist,
Yes.
you know what to do. You know how to utilize
how to
the
work the
system.
system. Yes,
Right.
they do.
I wasn't familiar with that lifestyle, and they came to me after we had the incident, like, okay, we're going to separate. I said, I just need him out of my home. This is my home. You know, I'm taking care of everything at the time. You know, you're not working. It's time for you to go. So they, you know, kicked him out. Of course, that was after I come out of the hospital, because I was end up in the hospital after that first incident. And then when I came back home the next day, the police escorted me back, and that probably, I don't know, maybe a couple hours later, they're knocking back on my door. I'm like, why are you people here? Well, you're going to have to leave. And why are you serving me paper? Well, he went and said that I beat him up. I'm like, excuse me? Does this look like this is what I've done to him? I did this to myself. So basically, I had to leave my home for 48 hours, and he was in my home. I had to go to court, and it was over holidays. I had to wait till Tuesday to go to court, have him serve with paper, and kicked out within less than 20 minutes. He couldn't even come back into the home. Everything had to be set outside. And from that point on, it was just hell. I was jumped coming into my house one evening because some idiot let them in the door, because at the time I was actually living in an apartment, and the way that they were laid out, you know, people will just come in randomly and not think about, well, we see your face. So they figured he was still there. No, I'm sure y'all have seen the police, but you're going to let this individual in the home. So I had to fight him off then. You know, so it was constantly always something. Finally got moved out of there, moved into another place. And I come out one day, and there was scratches and stuff all over my vehicle. So he figured out where I was at. You know, called and had threatened me on many occasions of, oh, you know, I'm gonna have somebody blow your head off. I won't use the explicit words that were, you know, so it was always something. But I will say that working with the detectives and the police, they were phenomenal. Alexandria Police Department, I praise them every day. I know there are many times that we're very scared of the police department, but that was one time that they really truly had my back. Because I mean, it's not like something you deal with every day, but knowing that this something that they don't like in domestic violence is very huge at the top of the list. And they explained to me, you know, we can help you, but if you have to be willing to do your part.
Yes.
And that's a problem with most women when they get into these situations. They think once the individual is gone out of their home that they're safe. The reality is you're not safe, because all they do is they go right to somebody else. And I said, you know what, if I can prevent this from happening to any other woman, I will do whatever is necessary to make sure that that jerk is behind bars.
So did you have to testify in court?
I did, yeah.
How did he come to be convicted of 10 years?
Because of all the incidences that happened, and then him leaving out, he actually had 11 felony charges. And with him leaving out of state and them having to extradite him back in, I mean, he broke all the rules. No matter what he was told to do, no matter how much paperwork was there, he was going to do it his way, period. And the judge told him that because I can remember, I'll never forget this woman as long as I live, little tiny little thing, sitting up there in her little judge outfit, and she's sitting there, she asked him, well, why are you so angry with her all the time? He's like, I don't know. She said, well, let me explain something to you. I'm going to give you plenty of time to think about it.
Ooh.
And that's exactly what they did. She slapped 10 years and said, you have more than enough time, and then we'll get you some tests too. Because it's just like, you got a problem. Yeah, you got a problem. But
was that relieving for you?
It was, because I actually felt at that point in my life I could actually live, you know, because every day I was literally had to have people know where I was at 24/7. I couldn't come and go the way I really wanted to. I felt like I was still living in prison myself, because every door would be locked, but within every door I would have a chair sitting up by the lock, anything to make sure that I felt safe.
Hypervigilance, yes.
Yeah.
Do you still experience any of the triggers from that physical or that emotional abuse?
Not as much anymore today. I think probably the first couple of years it was really rough. I couldn't sleep, didn't eat well. I actually had to have people in my home to watch me sleep, because the fear of, that this person's going to come back, you live with that. I tried to go through some counseling and so forth, but the thing I didn't like about the counseling was the fact that you can counsel me all day, but you don't understand what I'm going through because you've never been through what I've been through. Yeah. You can give me all the advice in the world, but what I learned was, for me, the writing and actually talking about it and realizing that was a healing process for me. And making other people understand that it affects people who are around you. It just doesn't affect the victim.
Was there anything specific that you used to actually work through some of the triggers that would happen from emotional and mental abuse?
Trying to think. I'm not really sure. I think that all of it was probably very dramatic. I guess one good incident that really helped me work through, I was going to work one day and I happened to be parked and I'm looking across the street, getting ready to get out, and then all of a sudden I see this man that literally looked a lot like him from a distance. Okay. And I just lost it in my car, and I'm just going off in my head and, talking to myself and thinking, and I literally had to sit back for a second and say, wait a minute. There's no way this person can get on this base anyway, so you just need to calm down. You need to really understand what you're going through. And so it was, for me, another opportunity to say, okay, you've got to be able to move forward. You can't continue to lean on every little thing, because unfortunately there are a lot of blackballed men running around.
And you can't have a panic attack every time
I seen one. Right. And that really was a trigger for me. I mean, it was really sad. Even I make a point in the book to talk about the fact that I would never date another blackballed man in my life, because that was a trigger. But of course, I definitely have gotten over that, but it took many years, because actually it's been almost 7 years, before I actually brought the book out. I wrote it 6 years ago. So,
do you think you'll experience any at the 10-year mark when you think he's been released?
He's actually been released. We're at that mark, and no, I'm fine. I know exactly where the individual is again, and unfortunately, he actually went back. So I'm not sure how many more years he will be in there.
Woo!
Yeah, same thing.
Isn't that good?
Yes, yeah.
So let's roll through the memoir, Deception of the Heart. I'm just going to call out a few titles, the chapter titles. And then you tell me, just give me a little overview of what that chapter is about. Okay. What would the reader get or learn from that chapter?
Okay.
Deception.
It talks about how deceiving, people can be, and trying to get people to understand that deception is used in a way that is usually not in the right way. But I was trying to convey in the book on that chapter that how hurt I was, that somebody could be so deceptive, a person who tells you every day that they love you, but love shouldn't hurt, love should not hurt, and that was what I was trying to convey in that chapter, was making people understand, what does deception really look like.
Yeah, love doesn't hurt. It isn't disrespectful.
Exactly.
It isn't condescending. Girl, don't get me started. The anger.
I was so angry, like I said, most of the time that, I wanted people to hear my anger in the book. I wanted them to feel, as I wrote this book, I want people to be in my shoes. I want them to understand the process that you go through, and that it's okay that you're going through this, but you have to know how to come out of it. And that's the biggest step.
Reliving the wounds.
Reliving the wounds is really about seeing those things like I just talked about, seeing that man across the street, or somebody saying the wrong thing, how do you get through that? What do you do when you feel that moment? Those are the things I try to teach in the book, that for every painful minute or moment that you're going through in life, you can't stay stuck on it. You have to stop being the victim. And I think you and I have talked a little bit about this before when we met, where I don't like to be called, you know, a survivor. I was surviving when I was going through that shit, excuse my language, you know, but I'm no longer that. I am my own hero because I decided to make the decision to continue to move forward in my life and to do something that's going to benefit me and other individuals, because domestic violence is not just about women. Like I said, it affects everybody that's a part of your life. You know, when I thought I was protecting my son, I thought I was protecting my family, I thought I was protecting my coworkers, to know that I could walk in my job after being just beat 3 or 4 days prior to that and act like nothing was wrong, that's not helping anyone. And it certainly wasn't helping myself. Right. So trying to get people to understand that domestic violence is something that needs to be talked about every single day. You don't talk about it in October. You don't talk about it because the new Me Too movement is out. You talk about it every day because it happens every day. And it's unfortunate that we even have to have the conversation, but you also have to understand that you need to know how to come out of it. You need to take the proper steps in order to live a good life, because you deserve that. And that's the one thing I had to learn, is that I deserve to be happy.
Do you experience any timidity or reservation when you date now?
A little bit. And not so much reservation. I'm just more focused on things that I would never have thought about asking or thinking about.
Such as? Well,
for instance, if I hear a certain tone in your voice, or, you know, you're fine one day and the next minute you act like you're a Dr. Jekyll, I'm done. I'm out. No sense in us having, because I've learned in life you can't change people. They're who they are. Yeah. And you're either going to accept them for who they are, or you're going to continue to move forward until you feel comfortable, you know, about what it is that makes you happy. Because there is no such thing as we know as perfection, but we do know that you can still be happy without feeling like you got to live on pins and needles.
Now, what is your hope or your vision for your book?
My vision is to be able to just reach out and help that one person that needs it. Okay. I've met many women just in the last several months with a few book signings that I've had, because I started my first ones in March, and then I have a book tour coming up this fall. And it just amazed me how many women in that room, which shocked me more, that they stood up in front of people they didn't even know and talked about them being in current domestic violence abuse relationships and needed to know a way out.
As you know, domestic violence is a cause near and dear to my heart. I will always showcase glowing examples of how to survive all year long, not just during Domestic Violence Awareness Month of October. Kim provided us with a lot of great information about how to deal with bad relationships. Don't ever be embarrassed that you made a mistake. The most important thing is to survive. If you are currently in need of help, please reach out. You can dial the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. If you'd like to reach out to Kim, visit wsbillc.com. I'm Anita, your host. Be sure to check out thatanitalive.com for where and when to see our next episode.